Yo, what up? I'm Coach RT3,
Not a what?
and we're the Upgrade Guys. Welcome to this episode of the Upgrade Your Shit podcast. We're happy to have you here once again. The mobility membership is available at theupgradeguys.com. You can check us out on YouTube at The Upgrade Guys, Instagram, The Upgrade Guys, and then you can find us on our personal channels through there. We're going to jump right to it today. We're happy to have Alan Z. He's a musician, rapper, artist. And so we're happy to have him with us today. And we're going to let him tell you guys a little bit about himself and where he's from.
Yeah, my name is Alan Z. I'm a rapper, singer, actor based in Atlanta, Georgia. My new album, Face Value with Jason Chu, is out, and that's been kind of like my passion project and a super special project that I've been working on all year.
How did you get into music?
When I was like super young, I was like 12 when I started rapping, and 15 when I started singing, and I kind of just knew since middle school that I wanted to be an artist, and so I took it like seriously when I moved to Atlanta when I was 18.
Where did you grow up?
I mean, pretty much like between Maryland and Seattle, and then when I moved to Atlanta, that became like my home.
How did you choose Atlanta?
Yeah, honestly, man, like when I was in Seattle, it wasn't like a really like mainstream presence in the like the hip hop industry right there. So I knew that if I was to grow up there and like try and do music, it would be such a hard climb in terms of getting recognition. I'm already Asian, right? It's like on top of
Yep.
being this in a city that's like not known for that as much. I wanted to be somewhere where like hip hop was prominent. So I applied to colleges like, purposely for like where hip hop was big. So I applied to like New York, Atlanta. I got into NYU and Emory, and Emory gave me a bigger grant, so I just went to Atlanta based off that.
That's what I'm talking about.
Nice. My
Get that
best friend
fucking
went to
money.
Emory.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he went to grad school out there. Um, yeah, so you grew up in Seattle mainly, right?
Yeah, like elementary school, I was in Maryland, so that was like my
hmm
early years, and then Seattle was like middle high school. Yeah.
what was that? What were those two areas like, growing up, trying to find yourself and kind of, establish who you are as a person?
Well, I feel like Maryland was kind of like where um I really discovered hip hop, so it has a kind of like a special place in my heart. That was like I was like the only Asian kid in like a black and Latino neighborhood,
hmm
and in Seattle it was like the complete opposite. It was like the suburbs, super white. Which is why like just me wanting to pursue like rapping at school, like just it got me ridiculed and bullied really badly. So I was like, I have
mm
to leave this place. I was like, this is a small ass school. We have a graduating class of less than 70 people. I was like, I cannot be in this town. You know what I'm saying? Like a small town of like just so for me it was like I had to make that choice of like going to like a bigger city where like I can expand and then make myself known where like the people are at, as opposed to like somewhere like Seattle. Which I mean, when I visit now, it's fine. But like as far as like where I was starting out, I was like I wanted to know I was appreciated, and so when I
Right.
went to Atlanta, I was.
Absolutely. What? So like you mentioned earlier, like I'm already Asian, so like you got that against you, or that's an obstacle to be addressed getting into music and rapping. So can you tell us about some of those challenges that you've had, how you might have dealt with them, like how that changes your perspective?
Yeah, well, when I was in the industry, well, I mean, not that I like stepped out, but like when I first started out, and when I was kind of getting into like the mainstream major label side of it, that was like always my obstacle. Like there'll be like some bigwig or higher up discovering me on YouTube or like a demo tape or whatever, and they'll be like, "Oh man, we're gonna, you can be the next big thing." And then right when they're like about to push me, they'll like have some hesitancy and they'll be like, "Well, I don't know what we can do. Maybe we should try the Asian market first, or maybe we will hide your face." Maybe like all these like really ignorant statements, and I'll read about like other Asian American artists who like are in the same urban field, and they'll go through the same thing. They'll go through the motions of trying to get picked up by a major, and then the major will feed them the same shit, or just like not knowing what to do with them. This is like
Right.
before BTS, by the way. So like, it was like didn't see how big like an Asian phenomenon
Yeah.
can be, right? So like in my head, I'm like, bro, I'm way ahead of my time. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and this was like when I first, bro, like when I was like in the industry, I didn't start out as a rapper because like even though I always rapped, I I knew that like it would have been harder at that time to like just as an Asian rapper. So I was mainly singing. So like people were like comparing me to like Chris Brown and like Justin Bieber and shit when I was like mad young.
Mm-hmm.
But I have so much anger in me that I was like, bro, I'm gonna be the most angriest pop star. I was like, this shit is not gonna work. I'm gonna end up being Chris Brown if I literally go the pop route. So as I evolved as an artist and a human being, I was like, all right, I can be either one or two things, right? I can either be a singer that raps really well, or I can be a rapper that sings really well. And there's two like choose your own adventure that happens, right? If I was to be a singer that raps really well, people would never take me serious as a rapper because we know people like Chris Brown and Trey Songz, they rap, but no one knows how good they are at rapping. Chris Brown's a pretty good rapper, but like no one knows because once you're in that singer lane, like people just don't care if you rap. However, if you're a rapper that can sing, even just a little bit, you end up as Drake or Fonte from Lil Brother. Like people are like, "Oh man, you can sing, you can sing." Like it's like that's an added bonus, but no one fucking cares about your bars if you're a fucking singer or if they know you as a singer first. So I made that conscious decision going forward that I was like, all right, I'm gonna be a rapper, and if people think I'm just a rapper, cool. They'll find out I can sing later on. I don't care. So that was kind of like the choice I took.
Have you do you know he's also a Vietnamese cat? He's a rapper. His name is Ty.
Of course, man. Come on,
Yeah.
Vietnamese gang.
So I was locked up with his big homie, right? And I was listening to one of his interviews. He was like, and this was back in like 2010 or something. So he was like, the industry is not ready for an Asian gangster rapper, right? And he's
I
like,
remember that.
and he was also saying like, just in general, how appearance or like what your ethnicity or
I
what
remember the interlude. I had that
oh, you
album.
do?
My
Oh,
Life of
right, right.
Rhymes. I
And
had
he was
it.
talking about Joel Ortiz, how they're like they're
Yep.
saying he's right. So like when you were talking
He was
about that's
too
exactly what we
big, too
think of,
Spanish.
bro.
Yep.
Yeah.
hmm
That's like that's some bullshit to me, bro. But yeah.
I mean, K-pop kind of changed that a little bit. You know what I'm saying? It's like commercial viability wise, it's like and I think with globalism, like the fact that our worlds are getting smaller because of the internet, like people
Right.
like us or whoever are people of color, like you kind of have the ability to make your own empire
Right.
while partnering up with these big wigs and whatever, as opposed to like needing a handout from them. You know what I'm saying? You build your
Or
own
like them
shit.
being a gatekeeper for your success, right? Because
Exactly.
like yeah,
Exactly.
because you put your shit out and it's dope. Like no matter what, people are gonna see it, right? Like you have
Yeah.
action, like letting people see like who you are, what you are, like letting them feel your shit. Right before you had these gatekeepers, and just like you were talking about, like you would get close to the thing, and they're like, "Well, actually, you Asian, so I gotta think about how the fuck we gonna do this type shit." Like
Exactly.
motherfucker, let the music be the music, man. And you could have like do
Exactly.
that's some bitch shit.
It is.
Fuck.
It is, man.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, it's pretty wild when you really think about it. I mean, I like in the '90s. I grew up. I was kind of listening to uh, J-pop, to be honest with you. Utada Hikaru and Ayumi Hamasaki and like
Mhm.
just various like artists who I just felt like even if you don't know the language, you knew that the music sounded good, right?
Mhm.
Like it was quality music, and you're just like you could bob, you could bob along to it, you could jam to it, and then you start digging a little bit, and you find out like some of the work they did across R&B, with R&B artists here, even, and I lived in Korea for a year, so I got introduced to a lot of K-pop, and I started seeing like, oh, there's Korean rappers out here, and it's weird it's weird for me to like hear people say things like, oh, you know it'd be weird to see Asian gangster rap, and I'm like, have you ever watched a Korean film? Like, for fuck's sake, like,
First of all, have you ever watched Rush Hour where they literally say the oldest gang, or not the oldest, but like the biggest gang in the world is the fucking triads?
yeah,
Yeah.
I
You know what I'm
mean,
saying? Like,
Like
shit, like
that's just
that,
hilarious to me, bro. Like
like
you were
I don't understand how people, they're like, oh, like Asian gang, like, are you seriously, like,
fuck around and
go to
find the
Long
fuck
Beach.
out.
Say that to the
I was
Cambodians in
about
Long
to say
Beach.
that shit. I
Yeah.
was just about to say, go to Eastside Long Beach, motherfucker. Ask
Yeah.
about them TRG motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Like, get the fuck out of here. You
Right.
crazy.
I mean,
Shit. Go down to Rampart and go down to 6th and Hoover, motherfucker. Like, tell me what happened, you stupid. Like, get the fuck
Yeah.
out of here. I hate that
Call
shit.
those motherfuckers privileged. See what
Right?
happens.
Yeah,
But
right. Like, oh, you're white adjacent, and you're like, oh, for real?
Oh, you about to be adjacent to death, motherfucker? Like, fuck out of here, man.
I love that shit when they like, oh, you're so ghetto for an Asian. What the fuck does that mean?
You know, I mean, you know where all that shit comes from, right? It stems from the the model minority myth.
Oh,
Right.
hell
So
yeah,
it's just
absolutely,
another extension
100%.
of that bullshit. That
Yeah.
whole like, like just basically, the way I see that shit is like it isolates you from your other what I'm saying, like the other people of color, but it
Mhm.
also puts you in a position where white people will still treat you like shit. But
Yeah.
the other people of color think that you guys are aligned
Right.
when you're still called chinks and gooks and dog eaters by the fucking white people. You see what I'm saying? So
yeah, and you get it
now
from both
Asians,
sides.
exactly,
Right.
and that's where we're at right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't like if you hiding under a fucking rock now, if you can't see that like that us being preferred as a minority group exists, right? Because the second that you set the dynamic where there is a division amongst us and you put us in a place where you can sort of prop us up as like, oh, model minority, but don't go too far. Oh, look at them, they hanging out with the white folks, right? So now like that 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 hint of privilege that they've sort of programmed into for the other minority groups to see, but for them to let go whenever they want. So if like all of those things are incongruent and all of those things are showing their head now in terms of like we see the Asians being attacked, we've seen elders getting stabbed, we've seen elders getting killed, and the system here is literally letting these people go and not punishing them. People are standing around watching, right? And then so now like it's up to us, it's up to the community to be patrolling the streets all fucking night. It's up to us to be out there all fucking day and be whacking cats that got machetes and shit, right? So like where's the privileges at? Like how is that adjacent to whiteness at all? You know what I mean? Like they literally 2 blocks from here, they stabbed 2 grandmothers just waiting for the bus for no fucking reason. You know what I mean? And people sit around and fucking watch that shit.
You guys in North Carolina, or you're in the Bay right now?
San Francisco.
You're in San Francisco right now?
Well, they got somebody in North Carolina?
No, I was just wondering.
Yeah, no, I'm in San Francisco. We in San Francisco, but right here on Market Street, just 2 blocks up. Like earlier this week on the 4th, they stabbed one 85-year-old lady and a 60-something-year-old lady. I seen the video. It looked like some shit straight out the fucking penitentiary.
Yeah, man, it's pretty wild, and I think it's like how would you say, like outside of just the music, how would you say you've navigated this? Like at what point did the sort of model minority idea become like very present like for you, and like when did you start to be like, what the fuck is this, and why why is this even a thought? You know what I'm saying? Like how,
I think it was like 9th grade, man. Like I was doing a project, and there was like nothing on Asian American history, but I was just thinking about how I was treated. I'm like, why do these white kids all call the Asian kids, like, why are we suddenly always the nerds, overachievers, violin players, right? Even if we are, it's like, but why is this like this immense like stereotype of who we are? You know what I'm saying? So I just Googled online, like trying to find out, and then I stumbled across the whole model minority myth and started reading about this shit. Like, oh, this is a systemic thing. Like this was put in place before any of us. So when you feed that kind of propaganda, it trickles down, to like social settings, right? It's like you feed a program to someone, and then they tell, what I'm saying, the parents tell their kids. Now their kids treat other people like this, right? So there's that, and there's also the other thing that also bothers me amongst a lot of other shit in terms of Asian issues is the perpetual foreigner syndrome. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure like Nat can also kind of attest to it, but it's like. You know what I'm saying? Like for example, if I'm
where you from? What are you?
Exactly. Yeah. Shit like that, or like, hey, how do you say this in your language? And it's like, bitch, like, how do you say it in Scottish? Like,
konnichiwa. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
dude, I had to check this dude when I was in Venice Beach, right? He was like selling CDs. I don't know why you know what I'm saying? Just like past 2009.
Who the fuck selling CDs to that?
So he as I'm walking by, he's like, konnichiwa, and I literally stopped him, and I was like, bro, like,
not cool.
Like it's not cool. And I was like, even if I was Japanese, which I'm not, I was like, let me tell you why. And like we shook hands, we didn't fight or anything, but I had to let him know. But I think it's like the fact that like I even had to explain is ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
I'm like,
absolutely.
It just.
So I was at Costco the other day and I was checking out. There's this dude there, and every Asian person that came by, he would like say something in a language, like he was trying to guess like what language you spoke, and he would try to be like, am I right? Am I right? So I got up and said, don't even think about it, motherfucker. And he was like, what? I said, don't do that shit. I said, get me your fucking manager right now. And he's looked at me, he's like, oh, what are you upset about? I said, why the fuck did you think that you could just randomly talk some language to all these people that came in line before you? And he's like, well, because what, motherfucker? And he was like, uh, well, I was like, yeah, exactly. Go get your fucking manager. And he's like, and he was hella confused. He was like, really was confused. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. But I said, fuck you, sorry. Go get your manager, bitch.
I honestly feel like more moments like that need to happen because those kind
Yeah.
of reality gut checks don't happen
Yeah.
enough.
No.
Because a lot of times, like, people let it slide because we've been taught to
Yeah.
like not rock the
Yeah.
boat.
Don't cause any trouble. Just
But
let it go. Keep
I've
your
seen a
head
lot more
down.
Asians now, like, being like, fuck that shit. Like, going off that is something that always also bothers me too. Is like when people talk about like, oh, Asian people, they're like so racist, and like they'll mention like the Asian shop owner or like the Asian convenience store. I literally tell people this. I don't know a single motherfucking Asian that owns a store, does nails, or any of
None
these
of
like
that
Family
shit.
Guy stereotypes. And I'm like, dude, you do realize most of us don't do that shit. Like, there's like
Right.
super poor like Asians that have to do that shit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If they just immigrated or if their family's in that business. But I'm like, if I as an Asian person don't know any of that, what
I
does
don't
that
know.
tell you?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Right.
it's frustrating, bro. Like, I don't think enough people like one humanize Asians enough and or even have experiences enough with Asians to have those kind of bold statements about it, man.
That's so Rich and I, we always talking about that in terms of
Mhm.
like the lack of experience with a group of people, and then vibing off of like what you've seen in media, right?
Right.
Because Rich, like we family, and he has Asian, his wife is Asian, and he lived in Asia, so like
Mhm.
uh a lot of time, like when we on social media, he'll come and pick up the slack for me because I just don't got it in me to tell people, right? And
Right.
but yeah, but no, Rich, I feel like you should speak on that, some bro.
Yeah, I'm just in my head, I'm just kind of thinking about it, and I'm just like, you know, when we like, there's a lot of stuff that, like, for me as a black man, I'll never know about the Asian community, right? So I'm a guest, right? I'm a guest in this conversation, even. Um, Obviously, we have overlapping. Sometimes we have overlapping, you know, uh, issues
Mhm.
with the whole, which is white supremacy. Um, we can see that the model minority myth has been something that has been used uh, to leverage against the black community,
Mhm.
and has also been used to create a huge wedge between our communities, that probably wouldn't be there if that
Oh, for sure.
sort of thing was not there.
Yeah.
And so I think, when you have people that, so there's a lot of different moving parts, right? You have people that buy into it, right? And then they also feed that beast. And then you have people who don't buy into it and are sitting there like, I don't believe this. What do what's wrong with you guys? And then on the other side, you have, people who feel like they've had only interactions with people who believe they are the model minority, or
Mhm.
they have carry that with them, right? So those are the only interactions they have. So they don't have a robust experience with a vast amount of people. Because I mean, being straight up, I've had experiences with people who believe they're model minority,
Mhm.
and
Me too.
then at the same time, I have experience. I have more experiences with people who don't buy into that. So, for me, I'm like, it's an individual thing, right? It's like
Mhm.
there's Uncle Tom ass black dudes out there,
Yep.
there's gangster ass black dudes out there, there's regular ass black dudes
Regular.
out
Yeah.
there. Like you can't like paint entire communities with a broad brush and use it
Right.
as a way to statistically um uh belittle or
Mhm.
put another community, down. So
Mhm.
it's wild, man. It's the whole system is wild, and I wish we could all like get our eyes focused on the 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 origins of the story, as
Mhm.
opposed to looking at all the symptoms that have come out of the story.
Mhm. Absolutely. And what
No
is
doubt.
weird is like you said, there's people that believe that Asians are like, privileged and white adjacent, right, and all that shit. Then there's also people that are like literally their only interactions are really low class poor Asian people that have to work in, you know what I'm saying, impoverished neighborhoods, have to open up stores, you know what I'm saying. It's like, how
Mhm.
the fuck can we be privileged and still poor as fuck at the same time? It's like, where are you?
Right.
But that goes back to cognitive dissonance. It's like you just want to believe that shit because it's more convenient for your confirmation bias. If you were to break
Absolutely.
apart from the brainwashing, right, then you can humanize these people, but you choose not to because, you know, like it's easier to just, like you said, use that broad stroke to generalize people. And I
Right.
think I would love to see like people start valuing the diversity of Asian Americans, not only in our nationalities, but in our personality and who we are. Like, for example, you can have gangster as Asians, you can have rich Asians, you can have poor Asians, you can have regular Asians. I think like that spectrum you're speaking of, if we had that for our community, like it'll be so much easier for everyone to coexist. Because what I see right now too is it's a weird thing where like Asians will tear other Asians down if they say the wrong thing instead of just calling them in, right? So like
Right.
if an Asian person fucks up, everyone turns on him because we're so terrified of how everyone views us as a whole. But it's like people can I feel like people should be allowed to have a variance of thoughts, but
Yeah.
only if that
We
person
got to be able to
is
talk
valued as
about
an
that shit.
individual. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But
Yeah.
we're not at that point
And
yet.
if you don't value them as an individual, you can't have the conversation, right?
Exactly.
Like
Well,
we got to remember, like what Rich is talking about, like if we keep our eyes focused on the origin story, like we have to be able to question everything that we think we might know or we might perceive about ourselves and how we exist, like in this country and like how we interact with other groups, right? Or
Yeah.
groups that have been identified.
but
Go ahead,
see
Rich.
what that's actually one of the there's a couple of things I wanted to pull out of that. That's actually one of the problems is the way in which we assign like behaviors or assign like certain things to certain groups, right? Like
Mhm.
you'll have people say that all black people are this way, right? Like
Mhm.
all the X amount of percent are criminals and this and that and the other. Once again, denying the root of
Mhm.
that, which is poverty, right? Because if you
Mhm.
go to any country with any group of people, right, you go to China, you go to Korea, you go to Sweden, you go to wherever places are, if people are poor, they're more likely to behave or to do things that to try to not be poor.
Mhm.
um and
Mhm.
so and sometimes that exposes you or brings you more makes you more receptive to uh behavior that is might be criminal, right? um and then like I think within you've the dynamics of like global versus local versus national sort of act mindsets of assigning ideals or behaviors or whatever is like you have I know as a black person we're like every time like a news story comes on or whatever, like don't let that motherfucker be black, god damn it, because like every time it gets assigned to the entire
Mhm.
community, no matter how many Oprahs and Steve Harveys and Barack Obamas and
Mhm.
LeBron Jameses and Steph Currys, and no matter how many of those are out there, one motherfucker makes the whole of the group like a negative, stereotype. Whereas the same people can look well, let's white people never get lumped in that,
Of
right? It's
course.
always it's
Of
always
course.
individual for them. It's
Ever.
always
Yeah.
like it was that guy, it was that one
Yeah.
guy,
Yeah.
so it's never assigned to the whole group.
Bad apple.
And then yeah, it was just a
Yeah.
bad apple.
Yeah.
um with with and from my lens, like within the Asian community, it goes back to what you're saying about like the idea of there being a gangster rapper, right? To me, white supremacy says
Mm.
we we
Mm.
cannot allow
Right.
that
Mm.
image to be a thing
Right.
because we're
Interesting.
too busy still trying to pump out this image
Right.
of the model minority, right? Like,
That's
Right.
very interesting. Yeah.
and then they assign these great characteristics and good look, they're so hardworking, they're so smart, they're so
Mm.
I'm like, bro, like I said, I lived in Korea. Like I taught kids in
Yeah.
Korea, I taught kids in Thailand. In my classroom, I had smart kids, I had kids who were not fucking smart.
Yeah.
Like there was a whole ass spectrum, right? And they're
And that
all
shit exists in every group of kids,
and they're
right?
all
I'm
like
very
me,
certain me
right?
and Nat both know some dumbass Asians. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, hell, I'm a dumbass Asian. Shit. You know, hella dumb. I go a bunch of dumb Asians, bro. Like dumb as fuck. I talk like, how the fuck did you just fix your mouth to say that shit to me, bro? Like, what the fuck?
But you know what I'm saying?
But,
Like as
yeah.
a school, I was a school teacher, right?
Yeah.
So like I'm in this space, and I'm like, there's a spectrum of children, you know. So you know, it's mind blowing to see like how we do that here, especially in the US.
Yeah. Right. Right. It's weird because it's like when we talk about like when people say like good stereotypes, I'm sure me and Nat can both attest like that shit wasn't good for our childhoods.
Nope.
You know what I'm
It
saying?
was
All that
not.
did was make
Absolutely
people want
was
to.
not.
It made us visible targets, right?
Yep.
Because it's like
You're
even if
calling
let's say,
attention to the difference.
bro, like I had to hide the fact I was smart. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm very smart. I'm, you know what I'm saying? But I had to hide all that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like kids in the neighborhood just said I talked white, whatever. But like it was not good for me to be smart. You know what I'm saying? Where you know what I'm saying? So it's like as people would say like, oh, these are good stereotypes. What it does is undermines our pain because whenever you know stuff happens in our community, they'll just say, oh, well, you know, it's an isolated incident. You know, yeah, I mean, they don't really go through racism. You know what I'm saying? Like people will just kind of keep sweeping under rug because it's more convenient for them to not care as opposed to kind of address the issue head on.
And if they acknowledge it, like they have now put themselves in a place where like, oh, I am aware of this thing, and like, what's my responsibility in this thing in terms of like us as a collective group of humans, right? And you're right, none of the fucking stereotypes help. Like, I wasn't smart or no shit like that, but like, you know, just the fact like even when I was in the hood and shit, and like, oh, let not do it. He Asian, he know math. Like, what the fuck, motherfucker? Like, how long you know me, motherfucker? Like, I'm not, no.
Like, do you think I was born with a calculator? You know what I'm saying?
Right? Like I was a calculator in my head. Like, motherfucker, I'm not. Or like, why not always got bad grades? Like, hey, man, he let Nat do it. He probably got. I ain't got no fucking good grades. What are you talking about? Like,
yeah.
Fuck, man. This shit is fucking nuts to me.
Also, let's be real. As like a fucking teenager, having good grades does not get you any play. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's like, how would that help us as you know as boys?
That's
right?
adding on to it, right?
That's what I'm saying, man. So.
Because as Asian men, you know, and I remember I have a Chinese friend. I was listening to a brother talk one time we were at dinner, and he said that when he lived in America, he always felt like he was at the bottom of the totem pole in terms of dating, and that he didn't have like not one or two girlfriends even through college here. But when he moved to Asia, like it completely flipped. And as I'm listening to him talk, I can hear him struggling, trying to confront the identity that America had given him, right? And also dealing with that dynamic of like, it's reassured to you. It's like it solidifies your belief in that when you go to Asia, and then you're all of a sudden preferred, right? So, and I guess I was less aware of it, I think, because like that wasn't something I encountered, but I know that a lot of Asian dudes feel like that. Right. And then also you hear the jokes like about Asian, like, you know, the places in which Asian women and Asian men like hold in America for that area. And it's just like, yeah.
So for me, like, I remember like, when I was growing up, like, you know, I was like, as a kid, I was very shy and very timid. And, so I knew that like I had to like find my place outside of where I was living at because you know that my identity, like you said, was assigned to me at that time. Like all these white kids, they were not gonna give me that ability to like even you know what I'm saying to be who I was.
Find out who you were.
Find out who I was. So when I moved to Atlanta, like I'm you know again I'm back to the Asian kid in a black space, but at that time like I was so passionate about music that like I was just in ciphers, I was in battles, and then I gained my friendship through my abilities. And then I started learning who I was. It was like at first I was just like fine with being like an anomaly. Oh, I'm like the Asian Eminem. I'm just battling people. People gonna love me. All I gotta do is you know what I'm saying. But then I realized there was a missing piece, which was it seems like in with Asian Americans, like when we're growing up, you had to choose a side. But why can't we just choose to be ourselves? Why can't we just be Asian Americans? So once I landed on that, I think I realized that's what most of us was lacking, right? And to go back to like the whole like lower bottom, the dating totem pole thing. I believe that it still exists in terms of like
I think
statistics, but I know for me like that shit ended because like just who I was. But I do know even though I'm okay as far as like like women and stuff like that. I know that it exists. Like I can't ignore that problem. So it's like that
Mhm.
shit is still something we have to continually address,
Right.
right? It's like when people say like shit about Asian men, even if these say it don't apply to me, that shit applies to me. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because you're generalizing all of us.
Yeah, and that
And I
shit's gonna
think
affect us. It's gonna affect our kids. Like, you
exactly.
know, I think the second part of that, or the flip side of that, is the stereotypes of Asian women, right? Like highly
Okay.
submissive, um, hypersexual, and like looking, waiting for some savior of another race to come and ravage them, type shit, right?
Well,
And that type of information, uh, when you start speaking to Asian women, like I normally get two things, and it's really bad here in the Bay, where
Okay.
Asian women are like, "Oh, I only date white people." I was like, "Yeah, you have some fucking like some serious fucking issues.
Yeah.
Like you have so much self hate in you that you don't even fucking understand right now." But like but and then I have the other side of it where it's like they sort of have trouble finding Asian men because they're all snatched up if they're like worth anything, and then so they start dating white folks, and then it's like they just always complaining about all these fucking things. It's like he just expects me to be so submissive. Anytime I have an opinion, he's like, "Why are you talking back to me?" and all this other shit. And I'm like,
That
dude,
sound man. I always kind of this is gonna sound weird, but I always worry for Asian women that date white men because it always feels like, are you okay?
it's not weird.
It feels like Stockholm syndrome. I'm just like,
Yeah,
I don't just like
I think I
blink
feel the
if
same
you
way.
yeah because of
I
what
feel
you
the same
just said.
way.
I'm just that alarms me. I'm like, yo, but like behind closed doors, what is going on? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's like, are you getting beat? Are you getting
yeah.
like
Are you
gaslit
a
or
piece of
whatever?
property?
Exactly. And then your
Yeah,
children. Is
yeah,
he or she going to start hating his Asian side and then
yeah,
become like Rob Schneider and fucking make fun of Asian
yeah.
people in his films? You know what I'm
All
saying?
that
Like,
shit. Like, and people
yeah,
think that shit is funny when you say it, like, on the surface, but that's some serious shit if you think about it,
yeah.
right? That's it's
it's
Again,
interesting.
not generalizing. There's some
yeah.
great white people. You know
Oh
what I'm
yeah,
saying?
no, like yeah, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying
Yeah,
like that dynamic of what we're speaking of, right? That's not even
yeah,
commenting on like any white people in general. I'm talking about that dynamic specifically,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
what we see and what we continue to see in Atlanta.
Right.
Like that's your, like,
Of
you know what I
course,
mean? Like
of
what was
course.
that like when you
I'm,
got the news? Like,
I mean, it was hard because, dude, like we're put on blast as like a fucking like massacre victims, right? And it's like right. I know where that those places are. You know what I'm saying? And I kind of always, I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't like our stories, our trauma stories being the attention of America. You know what I'm saying? Like almost like
Mhm.
our pain on display for you to judge whether or not we deserve to live. Because that's, I'm more fearful of like the commentary online in terms of like, as opposed
Yep,
to, you know what I'm saying? The news is horrible, but I know the
I already
comments.
know.
You know what they're gonna say because
Yeah,
whether it don't matter what race they are. If they're in America, they're gonna say some racist shit about Asians, and it's like,
yeah,
damn, bro, we just, you know what I'm saying? It's like I made a video, bro, and like I talked about the incident, how I just all I want is for the cycle to end. And then some fucking girl like jumps in and she's like, "It's the black scent for me." And then my friends are like, "Dude, Alan talks like super white." Like, what are you fucking talking? Like, they didn't say that, but they're just like, there's nothing like imitating about it. It's like, and then
hmm,
they were just like, bro, like at any given time they'll try to find a way to like dehumanize you. You know what I'm
hmm,
saying?
yeah.
Like,
You're the Asian guy who talks black, or like you. This was
yeah,
okay, but it was this accent that you did, or like
exactly,
none of
exactly.
those things indicate like what or who I am. Like
Even then,
you
what the fuck does that have to do with the
yeah,
fucking
right.
6 women that died, bitch?
Exactly. Like
You know what I'm saying?
what
Like,
the fuck does the way I'm talking have to do with the 6 women that were just murdered? Because there's been
yeah.
this fucking script that has been built around like what Asian people are in America, and these women
Mm-hmm.
were the victim of that. Like you don't fucking see that shit.
Absolutely.
It was like that sounded like racism on top of racism because to once again now you're using black.
Yeah, like what is a
You're
black
using
scent?
you're
Like
using black.
what the fuck is a black scent,
You're
right?
using you're
Yeah.
using black people once again to like as a
Well, she was also black, but
yeah, but
again,
still like it's
yeah,
still that's like the self. You know what I'm saying? Like the self. It's not the self hate, but it's like
it's
you
weaponizing your blackness to attack others. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right, but it's also limiting. It's also framing your own people within a
Yep.
segment of
You're
the
subscribing.
people.
You're
You're
subscribing to the thing
subscribing to white
yeah,
supremacy.
exactly.
You're
Mm,
subscribing to
Yeah.
white supremacy that says
mm,
When
black
you
people
said
speak
that,
this
when you
way.
think about that,
You know what I'm
mm.
saying?
straight the fuck up.
Because I like when I was I was living in Thailand when Barack Obama was elected, and I remember somebody saying to me, "Oh, you speak like, you're like Barack Obama type black
Mm.
guy," and to me, I'm like, you know, black people are a diaspora.
Mm.
Like, you've got countries all throughout Africa. You've got the Caribbean, you've got South America, Central America. Like, there's a lot of different ways in which a black person can sound. And so to limit, what a black person sounds like to what you hear in, you know, your favorite rappers, track, like
Yeah.
that to me, I'm like, that's such a small segment of the overall population, of people, and so it, even within ourselves, we have to check ourselves, within our own spaces, right? Because we
Mm.
also we talk about this all the time, like the fish inside the water, right?
Okay.
We're inside the water of white supremacy within this on this planet, and we don't know unless we're constantly looking that we're in this water,
Yeah.
right? And our behaviors and the way that we don't self-examine ourselves enough, or self-examine the things that we say, or the things
Yeah.
the behaviors that we do. We don't ever think to ourselves, is this something of my own, or is this
Mm-hmm.
something that I've
Based upon me.
been conditioned to behave, right? And that conditioning can be like through your schooling, but that conditioning can also be generational, right? Because when you think about, like, how many generations you may have been here in the country, or how many like, all of these things are feeding our parents, they're feeding our uncles, aunts, cousins, whatever, and like the way they speak to us, or the things that we navigate, and now it all becomes a part of the structure,
Mm.
right, and the system. And so I think we, like, when we say like being anti-racist or being all those sorts of things, like, that takes work. It literally means like you do have to put in some extra effort to, like, analyze this stuff on a regular basis. Like, was that right? Was that the right thing to say?
Mm.
If somebody comes to me and says like that wasn't cool, like, then I need to find out like why that wasn't cool, and then like adjust to that, right? These are learning experiences that we need to have. Like, a thing I posted the other day on Instagram, where this lady um was saying that the accents of Europeans
Mm.
um speaking English are always romanticized and fantasized, like, oh my god, that
Romance
accent,
language.
they're so it's so sexy when someone
Yeah. Yeah.
speaks with a French accent. But she's like, but then if you speak with an Asian
Yeah.
accent in English, like, you are suddenly like, you're belittled and you're down here,
Exactly.
and you're not intelligent, and I'm like, what
Mm-hmm.
the fuck? Have you ever tried to learn another language?
A whole ass
A
language.
whole ass
Mm.
other language? Like, did they communicate the shit that they were trying to get from, like,
Exactly.
if they're Chinese and they were born and raised in China, and they can speak enough English to you
Mm-hmm.
to get what the fuck they want, and you can't go to China
And say
and say
shit.
some shit in Chinese to get what the fuck you want, then who's the real dumbass?
Absolutely,
And
man.
I say that from a place of a man who's learning Mandarin, who
Yeah.
has learned Korean, who has learned some Thai. Like, those shits are fucking hard. But when you learn the language and you start to speak it and you start to attempt it to people,
Mm-hmm.
and they give you the thing that you want, you're like, holy fucking shit. Like, they didn't question it. They didn't, like, you were just like, I want that thing, and they gave it to you, and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, they understood it, and they didn't, like, say anything about your accent
Yeah.
or whatever. They were just like, holy shit, that black dude fucking spoke Korean. What the fuck's
Like good
going on?
shit, man. Good shit,
Like,
right?
what?
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna give him his
Dude, I
BB
don't know
bop.
what it is about. It's got to be American, like the like American exceptionalism, where they're like
It
just
is.
uphold pedestal America so much. But it's
Definitely
like
is.
just like what you said, when you go to any country, you attempt to speak their language, bro. They give you so much props because they're
Except
like, oh
France.
shit, well, white. But I'm saying like, you go like for example, right? If you go to Asia and you attempt to speak, in the native language, I think they'd be like, oh, okay, he's trying, right?
Yeah.
They're not gonna
Sure.
fucking point at you and laugh. They're just be like,
Right.
okay, let's attempt to
Right.
help out.
Right.
It's just
And
so weird to think about, man. Like, I feel
it's,
like
it
it's.
seems completely obvious, right?
Mhm,
Like it seems so fucking obvious, but people
mhm.
just can't see that shit. And I know in Thailand, it's like this joke, like forgive our like basically forgive our inability to speak English.
Wow.
So like up to your standards, but we calling attention to the fact that you can't speak Thai for shit, motherfucker. So shut the fuck up.
Mhm.
Right? Like you come over here, you be mad that somebody can't speak English well. Like, where the fuck do you think you at, you stupid motherfucker? Like, goddamn. And I fuck now that I'm thinking about this, like
Wow.
I'm thinking back now when I used to get in trouble at school and they
Uh-huh.
would have to talk to my mom, and I remember always being very, very apprehensive and like embarrassed of her accent
I
and
feel
like
you.
her being able to communicate with the teachers and shit,
Mm.
right?
I feel you.
And she probably for all intents she was a nurse, so like for all intents and purposes, like Rich was saying, like whatever she had to communicate, she could obviously communicate it well enough, right? But I
Yeah.
just still remember the teachers at school always like as if they had a lot of trouble understanding her. Like I remember one time I was punished because she wrote a note and they're like, there's no way that an adult wrote this note, you're like being punished right now. But that teacher also ended up calling my best friend the N-word at some
Mhm.
point in the school year. So that's a whole different
Oof.
story. But yeah, so it's like, shit like that. And I feel bad now because I think I probably like, I know that I remember specifically coming back one time. Mom was like, "Why? Like, why?" I was like upset and like I was just like really short with my answers. She's like, "Why? What's wrong with you?" And I was embarrassed about like I was embarrassed of the accent, right? And I didn't even like I obviously as a kid don't have the faculty to like examine that or understand that that's something that needs to be examined, right? But now looking back, like I just wish I could go slap those fucking teachers and that principal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember on a similar note about just like we're talking about the professional foreigner like treatment, right? I remember I was like in fourth grade, and like they give you like the when you're when you get like the low income meals, like they give you
Yeah.
what I'm saying, like, and then I didn't get enough of like of what I wanted and shit. And then I just looked at her. I was like, "Are you fucking serious? Like you gave
Yeah.
Chad way more than I." And then I was like, "Yo, I want more." And then I just and then she just said something, and then she was like, "Are you even speaking English right now?" She's like, "Speak," and I was just like, "Are you fucking serious?" Like, but shit like that, where it's like almost like they're in their minds.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They have
Yeah.
that window of who you are, and I'll never forget that, bro. And I was like, I was like, what? I don't know how old I was, but you
But
know,
regardless, your English was fine, right? So it wasn't your English; it was her perception of you as an Asian kid that
exactly.
made her hear that,
Hmm.
right? And motherfuckers don't understand neurology that your brain is an association making machine. Like a lot
Correct.
of things you think are true are not true. They're an association that's made to something that you understand to think you know. And that's how the brain finds facts.
Yeah,
And
I'm reading Shannon Lee's book right now about her dad Bruce Lee, and
Uh-huh.
mhm.
I'm at a section now where she talks about practicing like discernment, right? And it's basically like a awareless. I think I'm butchering it, but basically the idea is removing judgment from a situation and
Mm-hmm.
applying discernment instead. Because judgment is where you close off possibilities,
Exactly.
right, based off what your brain says is only capable, right?
Yep.
However, discernment is you assess the situation and the available options of what the outcome that it can come out of,
Exactly.
right? And
Yeah.
then, so I feel like not enough people have discernment. All they have
Yeah.
is
Mm.
judgment based off
100%.
ignorance or whatever it may be, right? What you've heard about you and whatever.
I think that
That's
ties
funny.
back to what Rich was talking about in terms like the fish not knowing it's wet, right?
Yeah.
Discernment. And so what we do is like a lot of what I do specifically for work is like I work with people with heavy injuries or have been pain for a long time and are limited in their life because of that. So a lot of the time, just like you're talking about, like when somebody starts, like if somebody's been in pain for a long time and I tell them to like, if their shoulder's been hurting forever, they have like a frozen shoulder or whatever, and I tell them to move their shoulder, the first thing that happens is their brain makes judgments, right? It makes
Mhm.
decisions. So we have this thing where it's like, Rich and I call it exploratory movement, which sounds a lot like what Shannon Lee is describing as discernment is. And I've read parts of Bruce Lee stuff that he talks about like basically no inner dialogue, right? Like you
Mhm.
kill the dialogue because the
Mhm.
dialogue is the judgment. And what you want to do is you want to accept and understand what's actually happening.
Exactly.
So we do this thing called exploratory movement and like setting up the like the way we want people to think as we're going into it, right? It's like it has a lot. And so like now that I understand a little bit deeper, it's like you're not giving this person directions in terms of how to move. You're giving this person some perspective in a different way to think before they start to move so that they're not already judging the movement, right? Because as we like and we think about movement in terms of like how much freedom you have and how you can interact with the world, and if you let allowing discernment to take place before judgment, you're ultimately increasing your potential to have freedom in the way that you think.
Mhm.
That shit makes sense.
It's all related. It's all one concept.
Yeah,
All related.
yeah.
I was just gonna say before we go went any further was that the I think these topics are interesting, and all these little pieces where we talk about like being able to self-assess and figure out whether um what you're doing is discerning what you're doing is right or like, you know, was that the right thing to say, you know, how could I have done this differently, or what are the potential outcomes, or, you know, I think like that's a part of like trying to grow, right? Like if you just feel like you can just go out and say what you want and do what you want and just like that has no consequence, then you're not actually trying to grow into something better than you are. And on top of that, like people, you know, people will criticize and say like, oh, you know, well, that's just such a small thing, and it's just such a. And another thing that I just recently saw this week, I think it might have been the same woman uh who posted this, which I thought was pretty interesting, was talking about the extremes of racism, or the, you know, where where the extremes lie, you know, because
Mhm.
everybody, you know, particularly, you know, white supremacy defines racism as like it has to be a like brutal violent act of like, you know, you called them the n-word, you called them, you
Yeah.
know, whatever
Yeah.
else, or you know, you attack them while saying these things, you know, like all the
Right.
like
Right.
it's
Right.
like it has to go together. You're
Right.
like,
Yeah.
well, like he didn't
It
have to
has all these
say it.
prerequisites.
He didn't have to say it to for me to know that it was
Yeah.
like it was
Yeah.
against me because I was black, or
Straight
because
the
I was
fuck
Asian, or
up.
because I was
Mhm.
trans, or because I was, you
Mhm.
know, they didn't
See,
need to
that's why they
say
get
it.
away with all this like this no charge hate crime shit because they're like, well, he
Exactly.
hit you, but he didn't really say that. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
bro, like, why would you hit? Shouldn't
Yeah.
that be enough? It's a
and
hateful crime. Like,
and
but it goes back to the yeah. What did you?
no, so the thing that she was talking about was how like you have that one side of the scale or extreme, and then on the other extreme you have the micro, you know, aggressions. You have the little things like you guys were talking about earlier, like just the idea of the picture painted of like Asian male and masculinity, or like the idea of Asian female and submissiveness, or like the idea of the accent, right? Like
Mhm.
being like the fact that you've reduced the Asian accent in English to this low level and elevated, like say the Frenchman or whoever else speaking the speaking English to this higher level, has you've already made the decision to lower that person to a
Yeah.
level. And so that in turn also feeds your on a regular basis. It continues to feed your understanding of that group of people, and you begin to see them as less than, as
Mhm.
opposed to seeing them as equal to.
Mhm.
And so I think these are those are two ends of the spectrum. But what people don't understand, we always talk about like progressive loading, is like that stuff is fed to you over and over and over and over. Those little
Mhm.
things are fed over and
Every
over,
time
and
you
they
adapt, you
build,
adapt.
you
Mhm.
adapt to it, and they and then it becomes it it becomes like, because it's so small and it's
Mhm.
been adding over time and you haven't really noticed it, you become like desensitized to it.
Yep.
Right.
Compound
And
interest.
so you've desensitized yourself to it. And once you're desensitized to it, now you're on a new threshold. So now the threshold has changed for what you would observe as being something like negative to you, like me doing something negative to Nat or to you because you're Asian, right? Like because of all those little things, I'm like, well, those things weren't bad. He didn't say
Yeah.
nothing about all those little things.
Yeah.
So now we're here, right? And like here might be like you cross right over that line and you getting your ass whooped, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so you don't like, instead of being like at the point where you're like, okay, I know all those things are not cool and this
Yeah.
person is equal. And so I probably shouldn't behave or say or act in this way because that's offensive to that person,
Mm-hmm.
like, and I think we don't take enough time as people to, observe those things, discern as you put, and make the right decisions regarding that,
Mm-hmm.
especially within this system that we're living
Mm-hmm.
within.
And that makes me really think about, because like the place where that is illustrated so much is like Alan was talking about, like in the comment, like I would say the same shit. Like it's, to me, it's like, fuck, I don't want to have to look through these comment
Right.
sections, right?
Right.
Like that's the illustration of exactly what you're talking about, right? Like we've normalized these things so much
Yep.
that now these motherfuckers can say whatever, like the shit they're saying online, they honestly don't see anything wrong with it,
Exactly.
right? Like
But
they
that's how
really
we.
don't.
But that's how I feel like we have to kind of flip that. Is like if it becomes taboo, you know what I'm saying? The
Yeah.
same way like other like I guess like statements are taboo, then the cultural shift happens, right?
Right.
So I think that's why Asians right now, like if we keep fighting for that shit, we can kind of like change that, not only change that narrative, but change how what people can say about us. You know what I'm saying? So we just gotta keep
I
going.
agree.
You get what I'm
I
saying?
agree.
Like
Yeah. This Asian people
How
in America also have this problem of like you said, we're always like, keep your head down, don't cause no trouble, like don't start no shit because they're gonna send us back, like if we're refugees, right? Shit, like no, like that's real shit,
that's
right? Like
real. No,
don't
no, I'm
cause no
laughing
fucking
because it's
trouble,
real.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. So like we are now in this place where it's like we have some of that, a lot of that, but at the same time we're like, but we can't be quiet anymore,
Mhm.
right? Like they are literally killing people for free.
Yeah.
Like we can't be quiet anymore. So
Mhm.
like we gotta let all that shit go, and we just gotta like we like all the rallies and marches, all that shit is cool. That's great, I'm all, but that's not gonna fix the problem, right? Like we need to be confronting things at every turn. We need to stand up. We need to speak out. We need to
Get back into self defense, man. I see a
yeah,
lot of people putting together those classes. I
yeah,
think
we're
those
doing
are
a
great.
lot of that shit out
All of
here.
that, bro. Like that is needed for
Yeah, that's
everybody.
hella needed. Yeah, especially, and like so this is on that one thing I'll make this distinction. Like I see a lot of people teaching like self defense, like for the elders. I think that's great, right?
Yeah,
But it's not their job. That's our job. Like
our job is to
people who's
protect them.
able bodied, yeah, people who's able bodied, like that's our job. Y'all need to be going to them self defense classes if you can't fight, or if you scared to fight, or whatever the fuck. You need to go there and be ready for, like, get with the shit. Like this is your job right now. That's your currency. It's
Mhm.
like we can't, and the more videos we see of like especially Asian men getting attacked and not fighting back, or like covering up and not doing shit, like that makes the collective understanding of what we are and what they're allowed to do much worse.
Mhm.
And when you do that, you put our aunts, our grandmothers, our mothers, our sisters, our daughters in danger, right?
That's why I was telling you that Korean dude in Philly, man. I'm like, bro, like,
Yeah,
thank you.
like I'll send
Like,
that mother. I wish I could send that motherfucker a Venmo. Let me buy that motherfucker some food when he come out here. Shit, like that. Like
bro,
that's my ministry right there, man.
yeah, man. Like, you gotta return what they're giving you, man. Like, speak their language, man. If they're
Yeah,
coming
Yeah.
at you,
at all fronts.
yeah.
How would you say that like all of these things have influenced your music and and what you do, and what do you also do outside of music, um regarding like these things, or regarding like moving the needle on these things?
So I'd say before 2020, most of like my music content was just more so about like more personal stuff about my life, and because I sang to like a lot of the music was catered to women, and it still is, right, in terms of like the pop sensibilities, like the melodic shit. But I think the turning point was when the rise of anti-Asian hate crimes happened last year, and I was just like, bro, like I don't even give a fuck if like I lose fans for this shit. I'm gonna talk about this. That was my biggest thing, was like, all right, I don't have that many Asian fans, so if I talk about Asian shit, it may get ignored. But at that point, I was just like, fuck this. And so when that happened, I actually gained more support than ever because I think I was just so passionate about it. And it's like that. I feel like passion is a language that can
Mm-hmm.
be like heard and understood by any any creed
Yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
it's something that we all feel when it's that strongly. So I just kept talking about it, and it actually led to the project that I released now. You know what I'm saying, which is Face Value, the project with Jason Chu, and that is a project about completely on Asian American history and experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And what I did was I put out a feeler last year and on a freestyle just called Asian American History. And the show went viral, and then people
Mm-hmm.
were just basically like commending the fact that I did it, and I was like, so maybe people are ready to just hear the truth or just
Yeah.
learn more. So like I use that as like a almost like a proof of concept, and then me and Jason we put together this whole album. We have like Dante Bosco,
Oh yeah,
Ronnie
I saw
Chang.
that.
He's on our first single,
Yeah.
Model Minority, which
Yeah.
going back to that, we break
Yep.
down the Model Minority through song. Ronnie Chang, he does the outro. AJ Raphael, like he's
Mm-hmm.
the OG YouTuber, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying, the singer, Filipino American. He's on a song. We got Ruby Ibarra. I'm sure you may have heard
Yeah.
of her. Yep, Ruby's on this.
Yeah.
Me and her do a song together.
Damn, I didn't check it out yet. I gotta look
Yeah,
that shit. I mean,
man.
I see you
So
put it up, but I haven't. I've been running around ragged, bro.
so
But
that's that's basically like the vision piece that I've had was like let's use our art to be able to like kind of put that out there because it's like yeah I can do as many like infographics as I can, motherfuckers still ain't gonna listen, but if I can ingrain like not ingrain but like if I can like ingrain this in you right through
yeah,
music and you're just listening casually through good music and suddenly you start getting an understanding that I'm doing my job
yeah,
because like
100%.
yo, bro, there were people like that weren't even Asian being like, yo, this shit made me cry. It's like they were like, I have no idea that you guys have went through this much stuff, and that's the kind of impact I wanted to make. Is
Right.
like use that like force for good. You know what I'm saying? And like, I'm like, I'm not a G man. I'm not a thug, so I can't do like certain things I want to do
Yeah,
to like
everybody
protect.
got a
But
different entry point.
everybody got, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I want to do my part to be able to like at least hold my own to
Yeah.
contribute in a
100%.
positive and healthy way. You know what I'm
I
saying?
think that's how I found you was the model minority one, because like
Yeah.
I was all those things you were talking about. Like I was trying to relate that to people in conversation and like in
Yeah.
different places, right? But the way that you weaved it all together and made it like a story that somebody could listen to within like a minute or two and
Mhm.
really understand, like that, the value of that is like unquantifiable. I think
Mhm.
when you look at people that have champions for their movement, I think the Asian population doesn't really have that. Like we have Daniel Wu coming out, we had Daniel Day
Yep.
Kim start talking, but this is, and like hats off to them because they're like they really talking about it. But also it's somewhat late in the game, right? Like the second that this shit started cracking off, like there should have been a bunch of people who had airplay, like get on and start like, hey, fuck this shit. You know what I mean?
I will say this. I feel like I don't think we need a sole champion, and the reason I say that is because it's a lot of pressure on one person, and two, it creates ego. Because if
Mm-hmm.
we start going to this mindset as a minority, saying no, I'm the one, then it's like
Right.
you're basically fighting against your own brother or
Yeah.
against your own sister
Yeah.
just for this one vanity title. So I think like the more we have, the better. So I
Yeah.
salute anybody who's willing to put their careers and like and fight for their own people. You get what I'm
No, that's
saying?
Especially
yeah,
So
no,
because
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying like we need more champions of the
more
cause. We
exactly.
need
Yeah,
yeah.
more
yeah.
people that can tell the story, right?
Well,
Like
Right.
especially considering the fact that like if you look historically at any sort of champion, single champion, they'll find a way to either discredit, eliminate, eradicate.
Literally,
Like
literally.
Malcolm X,
you
Martin
want to be the
Luther
Martin Luther
King,
King of you want to be the Martin
Fred
Luther King of the
Hampton,
I mean,
Asian
you're going,
Huey
community.
yeah.
Newton.
Nah, man.
Like
Like
do you like so I think it's funny like when you talk about like how to push things forward, I think collectively for all of us, it requires like everybody's effort to like
yeah,
contribute a little bit to it, right? There's no longer this whole like, well, that's their role in society, right? Like
right.
I don't have a role. Like
That's what I'm
no, like
saying.
it's
Like we
everybody's
all need,
role.
yeah, everybody got a different entry point. Like Alan's his music, he tells the story for the people to listen to together like
Yeah.
that. Like Daniel Day Kim
Yeah.
and Daniel Wu, they got platforms, they got money, they got things they're into. Like me, I'm on the street. I'm letting people like like
That's just mad important, bro.
everybody's got a different thing they got to do, right? But we all got to do something. We can't just be quiet about this shit. We can't just be like, oh, that's cool, they doing that shit over there, right? Like no, like everybody got some shit they got to do.
And that's how the civil rights movement was. I
Yeah.
mean, and when you think about it, there was music alongside of it. Like,
Yep.
there were people.
Organizers. researchers for the bus lines, like all
Yeah.
that shit.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like people providing food, people like there are all these things that like there's everybody can do something and everybody needs to do something, right? Like
Yeah.
I was on Market Street yesterday at this like a block from where them ladies got stabbed, and there was an Asian kid, like probably 28, 30. This motherfucker stuck on his phone, like not paying attention, just like literally walking around in a circle, looking at his phone, completely oblivious to what's going on around him. Two grandmothers in the bus stop right next to him, and he ain't paying attention. So I sit there and I'm watching this motherfucker for like 4 minutes. Finally, I couldn't help myself. I had to go up to this motherfucker. I was like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, what? I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, you're looking at me. I'm like, why ain't you paying attention? He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you sitting here with your head buried in your phone. Less than a block that way, two grandmas got stabbed yesterday. There's two grandmas right there. You yourself was a victim. You making yourself a target. You sitting here bullshitting on your fucking phone. What are you doing? He looked at me and he was like, oh, that don't apply to me. I was like, what the fuck do you mean it don't apply to you? What are you talking about? Like, I literally almost slapped this motherfucker in public. I don't what the fuck, man?
Wow.
I got that shit on video too, Rich. I'll show you.
It's hilarious.
But,
No, I mean, not hilarious. Actually, it's actually frustrating, but it's hilarious. You got it on video.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean, I don't got myself like cussing him out on video, but I got myself videoing him because I was
Yeah.
like videoing like the scene,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
like just in case, but like,
Yeah.
But I mean that I guess that kind of goes to like, everybody's not built for it, right? Like, so,
This is-
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty certain that during people was marching in Selma, and there was plenty of people who
Yeah.
they were like, yeah, nah, I ain't gonna. All right. But I mean, we need to get back to like doing stuff collectively together and organizing and deciding like, hey, we're gonna do this. We're all gonna do this, right? Like we
Yeah.
can't even bus
Yeah.
boycott no more. Like they literally boycott. They walked their asses to work for like
Mhm.
a year.
300 days.
So I mean, it's like what.
380
We can't
days,
get
right?
people. We can't
Right.
get people. We tell people, something's going.
I mean, we as a whole, as Americans, are too spoiled for that shit, bro.
Yeah.
Like, you're like,
We
hey,
can't-
boycott Uber. I can't. I gotta. It's
I
like-
need to get an Uber tomorrow.
I need this shit now. Boycott
Right.
Amazon Prime. Really? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's
Amazon. No, I can't.
Ronnie Chang. Ronnie Chang.
that,
Get it in my mouth before I think
instant
about it.
gratification. Yeah, I want it in my mouth now before I think. Yeah. Yo, y'all gotta
real
hear his
shit.
outro, man. He basically
I'm
sums
gonna
up.
check it, bro. I'm gonna start
salute.
posting
Yo,
that shit. Yeah.
what's so crazy about? So I watched Ronnie Chang's thing, right? So I was looking him up. I was like, this dude's funny as fuck.
Yeah.
He's
And
funny as
then,
a motherfucker.
Like, and then I was like reading his bio, and it was like when he moved to Singapore and he lived in the Jurong area, and I was like, shit, that's like one train stop from my wife. Like, she's my wife's age. They were like 1985. I was like, I guarantee y'all know the same. Y'all know some of the same people. I guarantee it. Singapore's so damn small. But I was like,
I actually
that's
used to live in
crazy.
Singapore when I was younger, by the way.
Did you?
Oh
was-
shit!
yeah. I was
Damn.
5, but I don't. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it, man. I'm about to go to the summer. Like I said, like as I tell people this all the time, like as a black man, like I just got finished telling Nat this shit. I was like, yo, like I literally, like the cops don't give me a second glance. Like
Mhm.
it, like, and I was like, for people to say that there's not a systemic problem in our country, and it's not tied to racism and white supremacy, and yet I can be in a whole ass other country walking and not have people don't like give a shit. Like they're not clutching their purse, they're not like looking at me any sort of way. They're just like whatever. Like, I mean, I don't think people fully grasp or understand what that feels like to be completely like not worried about interactions with law enforcement who happen to be carrying guns
Yes.
legally. And,
Like, dude, it's weird because I always felt when I'm in Asia, like no matter what part,
yeah,
I can finally not look over my shoulder.
everywhere.
I can be that oblivious kid that Nat's talking about
Yeah.
freely. But
Right.
when I'm in America, bro, I'm always looking around because I'm like, yo, some motherfuckers might think I'm soft, and I might have to, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna have to do something. But I don't want to be in that mindset where I'm like on edge. I'd rather just chill out. But like you mentioned, it's like, what is wrong with this country that's supposed to be like this melting pot, but everyone's just so fucking aggressive and looking to make someone else a prey. You get what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
I get exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, that's real. Like, I honestly, it's like Alan said, being in any of those places, that your threat level goes down like so low, like to the point where like, you know, I've told people straight up, like, because I wear a tracker, you know, and like I I was texting that like,
Oh yeah,
yo, my recovery scores are fucking incredible,
off
like
the
off
chain.
the charts over here. Like, what the hell, you know? And the thing is because of COVID, you know, we stayed there much longer than we normally did in the past, right? So we had to stay in quarantine for 2 weeks, and then we stayed an extra 3 weeks afterwards. So, you know, by the time I got 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks in, it was like my like everything like came down, like
Yeah.
heart rate, like my resting heart rate was the lowest it had ever been. Like my average resting heart rate throughout the day and throughout the week, like it was just like, this is amazing. This is
Yeah.
incredible. And just think about that, right? Like if your resting heart rate is going down just from the environment that you're in, living in, and then you come back to a place and you start seeing that average go up,
Mm-hmm.
you think about what heart rate means and what all these things mean to your life, and like stress levels and anxieties and all these things, and how it's actually stealing time from you over time, you
And
know. So
even on the more like mental health level, like I think about how when I'm traveling, right, I write a lot of music that I'm unable to hear. So when I'm
mm,
like in America or just just in general, like where I'm just on edge, I write a lot of I write a lot of bars. I write a lot of like substance heavy, like angry shit. But when I'm like traveling, I write a lot of pop songs, man. Like I'll be like in Macau, like writing 10 songs. It's just because I
Right.
finally understand why like artists go to Hawaii or like
mhm,
when Kanye went to Wyoming, because it's like, dude, like that kind of peace of mind can free up so much space in your mind. You know
mm,
what I'm saying? Like I have trouble writing happy songs where I'm singing and shit like that because I'm not in that space. I'm in a space where I'm trying to like, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm on go mode. But
right,
like you mentioned, right? Like how much better would life be if we could all be in that kind of like, you know what I'm saying, without
Yeah.
that threat level was so low. So
yeah,
What's it feel like to wake up and not think about your grandmother getting attacked or your
that's what I'm
mom being
saying.
fucking stabbed, right? Like, or the
It's
fact that
that's a dream come true, bro. That's like
it's and even before this, right? The fact that I was on edge, and you gotta probably like attest that to like my background or whatever. But I think even like as you say, like you yourself even find yourself on edge, right? So like imagine I don't know how to say this right, but like, or imagine a person who hasn't been in a lot of physical confrontation is super uncomfortable about that,
yeah.
and they're seeing this on the news. Like, how uncomfortable would they be to go about their daily life? Because like my mom right now, she's afraid to go to the market, like
Mhm.
straight the fuck up, right?
Of course.
And then when I like, and I like, so when I escort people in Chinatown, like they're clutching my arm so tight that like I can feel how afraid they are,
Right.
right? Or like
Right.
or I can, or as I'm walking through Chinatown, like it's palpable because like you can feel the shit. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Because like I can really like I'm a person. I might maybe making it up, but like I can feel a motherfucker's energy, right? Like I can read the energy of the room. Like that's one of my things. So like,
The shit that makes me so angry, just even just the thought of it, is like they're coming into our neighborhoods,
mm-hmm.
terrorizing our elders
Yeah,
and our our women and shit. It's like, bro, how disrespectful was that? You know what I'm saying?
right,
And they know how much we love our elders.
right. Like in our culture, our elders are every fucking thing, and
Right.
like you like they're everything. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So like it's the most disrespectful thing you can do. And like bad shit is like there's and there's always gonna be bad shit around the corner because I know like at one point in Chinatown like all the youngsters that come out and they like wanted to just get off on anybody who like looked different, who was other. We're like, hey man, you can't do that shit. Like don't like you can't just be attacking innocent people. We don't do that shit. Like
Mhm.
that's not the answer. Oh fuck
um,
that, they attacking us. Not like no man, we don't get like that's not okay.
Yeah.
Like those are
Yeah.
rules that cannot be broken,
I
right?
feel you. Of
And like even me, when I was like leading a criminal lifestyle, like there are rules: no women, no children, and don't fuck
course.
with nobody at their family home. Like that's just off top, right?
Mhm.
And now motherfuckers is not playing by the rules.
Mhm.
So it's like I get it where the youngsters are like, nah, fuck that. They ain't playing by the rules. But like that's that thing. It's like that doesn't hurt the people that's coming to hurt you or us, right?
Mhm.
That hurts the people that are not involved with it. I
Mhm.
guarantee you that, and that's
yeah,
gonna end up hurting everybody more.
Mhm.
yeah,
But I get it because I feel the anger. I feel the thing of this thing. Like you just gotta let it. You just want to let it out on something, right?
Mhm.
And unfortunately, in America, a lot of times the way that Americans are conditioned to do that is how you look, or like what you look like,
Facts.
where you look like you come from.
Facts.
How did like obviously hip hop is very much dominated by African American community. Um obviously that's where it kind of originates. So how have you been like embraced within the community there? And what's your experience been like?
Dude, like the first people to embrace me were black people. So like I've always like felt comfortable. You know what I'm saying? Like when I
Mm-hmm.
was like when I first moved to Atlanta, like, 90% of the people I made friends were black. And that kind of became like this, I guess, the trend that of like my friend groups. You know what I'm saying? And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like a conscious thing where I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna make sure. It just happened because I'm nerdy when it comes to rapping, bro. I like, if you fucking talk battle rap to me, I'm gonna be your friend, right? And so I was just so like enthralled with the craft of what I'm trying to do, and I think because of that, like I was embraced more so than someone who maybe just wanted to make a profit off of it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And then like as I progressed in my career, like, I definitely like noticed that, like, a lot of my like fans were like black women. So I was like always made sure that, like, they knew they were appreciated. And even now as I'm growing my Asian audience, like I feel like, I want to do good in being able to kind of bridge that gap however I can. So I've made
Mm-hmm.
like songs talking about how we can come together, community building, and like,
Mm-hmm.
it was received pretty well. And I feel like when someone like me who has that kind of experience where like I've been to the quote unquote other side and know that like it's not as like, you know, um there's not as much friction as you think there is when you come in a genuine place.
Yeah.
You can kind of bring that info back to people that live in an echo chamber. And same thing for black people that go in Asian communities and they're like super embraced. Like I know a
Yeah.
couple, like that dude C Crave, like he's like super down with the Cambodians and shit. Or
All right, yeah.
right. So it's like I feel like
He's part Cambodian, ain't he?
I don't know. I thought he was just full black. I'm not
Oh,
sure.
is he? So he full black and speak Cambodian fluent then?
He was like he's like super down. Like people love
Yeah,
him, right? And he's like
yeah,
very, and I feel like when you can come from like a genuine place and like you can kind of like share that kind of like community, and you bond together. Like I think it shows that things are possible. But
Yeah.
what does get tricky is like internet gatekeeping, as you guys see, is like
Mm.
they'll be
Yeah.
like,
yeah. That's
"Oh,
the
he's Asian.
bullshit.
No, he's culture appropriating." I'm like, "Motherfucker, you have a fucking anime character on your fucking profile." You get what I'm saying? Like that, it gets weird, man. I'll see that shit,
Yeah,
and I'm just like, "Why the fuck is your name Sensei?" And you're saying I'm the one. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's
Yeah.
weird rules that people will try and play, and they'll hide behind
right.
avatars and made up fake names. But that's where it gets weird. I feel like in real life, like, bro, like I've always like navigated myself well in those spaces. I feel, knock on wood, because I feel like I don't have ulterior motives. I came here to do what I do, and I love my friends. I love,
Yeah,
I treat my friends like family, and I feel like I've always had that kind of appreciation because of my experiences. I can't speak for everyone else, but for me, it was like because it came from a place of love, and I was embraced. I always give that love back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. That's dope.
that's the
I
way
think
it should be.
that's yeah, that's totally important because I feel like that's like a missing thing. I tell Nat this all the time. I was like, yo, when I get, when I come up, like
Mhm.
one of my biggest like ambitions is to like bring black children abroad. Um, to all types of places, but specifically I think to Asia. Um, because I just think like there's there's so much to learn throughout Asia and Africa, and like there's so much to be exposed to, and there's like when I got to uh Korea, like I just remember being like brought to like every week I was being brought to a restaurant by my co-teachers. Every like my vice principal was like, you need to come to my house. He can't speak English. So the co-teacher is telling me like, he wants you to come to his house this Friday, and so we're going to take you to his house on Friday, and his wife is going to prepare this meal. And then like these things were like so important to them to like bring me in to their home and like like show me like a good time, make sure I had everything that I needed to thrive. while I was there. And, you know, I had those experiences throughout my experience throughout Asia, you know, where people brought me into their homes, didn't really even know me that well.
Mm-hmm.
And I could say the same thing goes for a lot of families and communities here. You know, I see it like at Black family reunions and things like that, where it's like, there's like a few Asian dudes over there, a couple
Yeah.
Latinos over there, and you're like, are they family? No, no, no. They family. Like,
I mean,
come over here and get you a
that's been always
plate.
been my experience. Like
Yeah.
if I have a friend, he'll be like, "Yo, man, my friends have my family's having a cookout," and I'm like the only Asian dude. You know what I'm saying? And it's like I've never felt slighted, but just like you said, it's because it's so welcoming and that they
Yeah,
don't treat you like an other. It makes you feel like, okay, well, I belong here, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think that kind of, I think our two communities kind of share that bond in terms of family because we embrace
You
that
better
shit
come
hard.
and you better eat,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
come in
yeah,
here and let me feed you type
I
thing, right?
exactly.
personally, I think a
Exactly.
lot of it, uh, like a lot of, or some aspects of that like it's fractured. I think in the
Yeah.
Black community in some ways, or in a lot of ways. And I think I can't speak for the Asian community, but I feel like as people do more to try to be like Americans or
Mm.
what they perceive America to be,
Assimilate.
they
Mm-hmm.
discard discard the things that made them who they were, or
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
made, you know, the culture rich.
Mm-hmm.
um and some of those things are the idea of like cooking for people and bringing them, you know, bringing food to them, and like having that sort of
Community.
Mm-hmm.
community aspect, you know, of living. Like it's become very like, you know, everybody likes to say pull yourself up by your bootstraps
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of shit. And I'm just like, somebody just said that shit to me the other day, like, and tried to say like Malcolm X was saying that, and I was like, yo, bro, like, I don't have time for this fucking argument. Like, and like, this is just ridiculous.
Alternative facts.
I mean,
Yeah.
Fake
you know,
news.
Malcolm did believe in uh, uh, black separatism and black nationalism. He wanted to uplift the community, believed that we should be doing things, you know, building our own banks, our own
Mm-hmm.
commerce, our own things like that, right? You know, because every other culture did it. But I think what also gets left in in out of context is like Malcolm is in a space and time. He only
Mm-hmm.
exists within that space and time.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't exist on the other side, both past or present in that
Right.
space and time. So what's neglected in that discussion is the fact that there were and are communities or places where that happened and oftentimes was destroyed, and other
Yeah.
communities were allowed to thrive, you know, like Italian, Irish, all these communities were allowed to have criminal endeavors and enterprise
Yeah.
for a
That's
long
true.
time to get what they needed.
And then you have Black Wall Street. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? It's like,
Black Wall Street and numerous other places that were like just, you know, lynchings, murders, like fear tactics. Like, you're not going to have this, and then
mm-hmm.
redlining and all these other things.
Same
So
exact shit that happened to our community. You know what I'm
right,
saying? Like the Chinatown massacres, the Rock
yep,
Springs massacres, like
absolutely,
the threat of, you know, the quote unquote other doing better than you. You get what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like,
I forgot where I was relating this to, but when I was locked up, I was in the law library and I was studying case
You
law, and there
talking
was
about
still
being locked up a lot nowadays,
well,
man.
because
Like, what's
all these things are starting to, because you know most of the shit I learned is
like in
like, you know, I relate to that.
our early
Uh,
podcast, he was like very, you know, like, I think you might have said it only once, and now it's like 3 4
well,
times in this one
this
episode.
podcast is
But
like
you feel
making me think of a
comfortable
lot
around
of
Alan?
shit.
You feel
huh?
comfortable? Alan
Yeah,
making you
because he's
comfortable?
Asian, bro. That's like, you know, no. I think no, just because like specifically this one, a lot of issues in terms of race and like my identity, like I discovered while I was locked up, right? Or I started
Mm.
thinking about it when I was locked up. So
Could
like,
I ask you a question? Cause just because I don't know where you were locked up. But like,
yeah.
was there like a like did the Asians hold you down, or was it more of a mix that kind of like you know?
So I'm from LA. I
Okay.
ended up doing time in Oregon, which is the
Okay.
worst fucking thing.
I
Because
bet
Oregon's
that's
racist.
That shit's
super
run by the
racist.
fucking clan, and they
Yeah,
don't
I
even
bet.
hide it. But
Wow.
in prison, it's always by race, and
Okay.
so in prison is always by race, and your race is always has to be first, right? But the type of person or the who I am, and like you said, like my friend groups tend to have a lot of black friends, and I made a lot of really close friends that were black, And in the beginning, it was just like the API card, right? Asian Pacific Islander. Like that's who we hold down, and like it's all us. But as time started to go on, like our groups, wherever yard I was on, we started really mixing and like commingling to some degree. And there were a lot of instances where some shit was gonna go down in the yard and we were gonna ride together, right? But like people didn't know like until it popped off. And then also vice versa, like I tell this story pretty often. We have a Cambodian homeboy who's in a wheelchair. He got shot by some cats, and he's like doing a life sentence, but he's in a wheelchair. And that gang that he killed that dude, like whenever they see him, they jump him and they attack him. They try to get him, right? They try to stab him and shit. So it's like we got a mandatory thing when I'm on a yard. Like somebody always got to escort KO. Everybody got to be with him. And there was out. We have two tables on a yard, and they were playing cards with one of the Tongan homies, Cece's, my one of my best friends. And these essay cats came over and they were like, "Hey, you on our table," and they tried to knock their shit off. So I'm like, "Oh no, fuck that." So we jump up and there's 8 of us, right? There's literally like 190 of these dudes. Like the essays were deep as fuck. Like literally 190 of these motherfuckers, right? So I said, like fuck it, like we gotta, like we can't let this shit ride. Um, and then like in my head, like I'm just already locked in, like, okay, how we gonna make this shit happen? Like where people gotta be at. So I'm like, hey, y'all put your back to the table, get ready. Like, but y'all stay over here. I'm gonna go talk to them. So I walk right through the middle. I have to go to talk to their leader. Uh and like unbeknownst to me, when I started looking around, like the cars that were associated with my friends who are black, like my boy Hyphy and my boy Marcus from Portland. So Marcus from Columbia Villa Crip, Hyphy rest in peace from Phelan. um like we are like thick as thieves, right? And I look around and I see Hyphy and his whole squad like posted up at their spot of yard. I see Marcus with all of the fucking Crips up along the wall next to the weight pile. And there was this other Italian cat that I halfway fucked with, and he had his whole car ready. So it wasn't just us, right? But I was like, and then I realized that I'm looking around like, oh shit, it's about to go down. But anyway, so I just told that dude, I'm like, hey man, let's just go back to the cell, me and you, and handle it. Like we could just save all this shit. But like to answer your question, in the beginning, for me specifically, like I really tried to bridge that gap. And I think, I don't know if it's because I didn't understand like why we had shared interests and like, where the struggles overlap, but at the time, but it felt right. And that thing grew a lot more, and it became a lot more normalized in that penitentiary system. But it's not like that here in California. It's very strict racial lines, and like there is no commingling. Like this is Asian, this is black, this is Mexican, like that's it.
Gotcha.
That's wild.
Hey, I gotta tell this part. So at the end of it, my boy Hyphy, he was like, "Hey man," he called me the N-word. He's like, "Hey man, what the fuck wrong with you, man? We ain't the Ninja Turtles, fool. But them essays was gonna kill us. We ain't the Ninja Turtles." I was like, "Hyphy, fuck what you talking about. I'm a Ninja Turtle. I'm Raphael. I don't give a fuck." I will never forget that, bro. He turned right to me. He slapped me in the chest. He's like, "Man, we ain't the Ninja Turtles."
That's just hilarious.
Man, it like I feel like, whenever wherever we're at in society, like things tend to kind of like form up like that, right? Like you hear people talking about high schools and how high schools are like divided by along racial lines, right? um I feel like here in San Francisco growing up, it wasn't like that. um so much, and especially at certain high schools, it was pretty mixed. Like I remember like the Tongans, Filipino, Mexican, and Black, were always kind of like together. Oftentimes like people didn't really like, most of the Chinese people like kind of stayed out of the mix, right? And kind of just kept to themselves. Like, and half the time we didn't know what the hell they was up to, or if they were up to anything at all. It was only like later on you start realizing like, oh shit, that cat was actually in deep in some shit here in the city. You know what I'm saying? Like they kept they kept their stuff like pretty buttoned up, like
Mhm.
even if they were into something, like I said, so it comes back to that what we were talking about in the beginning, where you have this idea of the model minority, right? And like teachers, like that kid is smart, that kid doesn't
Mhm.
cause trouble, that kid doesn't do this, doesn't do that, and you're like, you find out later, like, shit, that motherfucker was the main one, like distributing weed and shit through the
Yeah.
high school. Like, what the fuck?
He was the weed
Like,
plug.
he was the main one, like
Plug
with
walk.
like he was the main one. Who you going to for the fireworks? Oh shit. Like,
Mhm.
it's like all that sort of stuff, and but nobody really knew. So it's crazy, man. It's crazy. But I wish like people could, like I said in the beginning, people could just start to take a step back and understand the systemic nature of this and how it's structured, and like I just get so irritated and annoyed by people who try to say that that's not the case and it doesn't exist. I'm like, how? Like, there's too much data, there's too much
Mhm.
information out there for it not to exist, right?
Mhm.
Like, we're not like the individual act of a person might not be explicitly racist, but it is a outcome based on the system that
Yeah.
we've grown into, right? And so um, we have to take the steps to understand how those systems were created and how we can dismantle them to move
What
forward.
I feel like because America is a racist country, all of us have a little bit of racist in us that we have to unlearn. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And I'm not saying that anyone's racist right now, but I'm saying like
There's
growing
shit
up,
that
like
we
there's a
haven't
it's
thought
it's
about.
ingrained. Like
Yeah.
for example, like when we talk about like the origins, right? It's like we can talk about like, oh, when people say, oh, Asians, they have to deal with their anti-blackness, but at the same time, black people deal with their anti-Asianness because all of us have had these kind of like preconceived notions of one another based on what we've been told, what we've been programmed, right?
Yep.
So a
And you
lot
can
of
say that about
deprogramming, or even
insert
yo, whoever
any group,
insert
right?
Mexican,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like yo, like
All
I
of it.
mean, when I was growing up, like in Maryland, I remembered my one of my friends told me like he couldn't come over no more because his mom said she doesn't want his her kid around Asians. You know what I'm saying? And I was like in third grade. So it's shit like that. But it's like all this
Right.
stuff that you have to learn to like deprogram.
Yeah.
And until you're ready to confront that, shit will never change within yourself and then within the larger context of a society.
Yo, you got where can everybody find you at on social media, or find your album, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so all social media links is at Alan Z Music, ALANZ Music, and all of my music is on all the platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, and it's just Alan Z, so ALAN last initial Z.
Dope. Dope. Well, we really appreciate you coming on with us and having this very candid chat. I think it's very important. I mean, obviously, dialogue is one of the most important aspects, and our listeners, I think, could benefit tremendously from this very open discussion, and hopefully being a little bit enlightened and maybe take them in a direction to kind of examine and what was the word we just used?
Discern.
Discern better for themselves, on their own behaviors and actions, and upgrade their shit. Uh, so yeah, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it. For everybody who's listening, thank you for listening. We appreciate you. Remember, you can get the mobility membership at theupgradeguys.com. Find us anywhere on social media at The Upgrade Guys. Peace out.
Do and upgrade your shit. Upgrade your shit.